I'm going to talk about jazz drumming a little bit today because that's one of the most requested topics that I get whenever I ask folks on the internet, like, hey, what topics do you want to see videos on? Everyone's always talking about jazz comping and jazz drumming and that kind of thing. And the bad news is I'm not going to talk about how to play jazz drumming. There are so many resources out there about the basics of jazz drumming and that kind of thing. The world does not need another basic independence guide. So the prerequisite for this video is to just have basic jazz independence happening, which leads to the first question that I get a lot of times, which is like, Steve, what do I play with my left hand when I'm playing swing time in a jazz context? And that insinuates that you have the freedom to play whatever you want with your left hand or your bass drum or your hi-hat, and that may or may not be the case. The more freedom you have, the more choices you have in terms of what to play. So I think it's important to develop that independence and that freedom to do whatever you want, so that you have more to choose from when it comes time to learn what to play. Now, to talk about what do I play with other limbs when I'm playing jazz time, I mean, I don't have the answer to that. I've just done the same thing that everyone else does, which is just listen to a million jazz recordings, and obviously I have my favorites, and just record yourself a whole lot and listen back and try to listen from the standpoint of you're listening in your car or something, or like you're listening to music. You're not listening to drumming, or you're not listening for drumming kind of things. You want to ask yourself, does the music sound like it sounds when I listen to jazz and I like it? There were some key recordings for me that were they really hit home in terms of what I want jazz to sound like when I play it, and I'm not saying that it does, but those are my beacons. Wynton Marsalis's Standard Time Volume 1 with Jeff Tain Watts, I listen to an awful lot of, and that album swings so hard for me. Wayne Shorter's Speak No Evil with Elvin Jones, that's jazz drumming for me. This is a very personal thing. Obviously, you ask 10 different drummers, what their favorite jazz recordings are. Obviously, you're going to get different things. Also, Jack DeJohnette, Michael Brecker's Tales from the Hudson. Heck, any record that Jack is on is just, again, I gravitated towards that in terms of this is what I want, it to sound like when I play jazz. It's not about mimicking drumming. It's about, mimicking the contribution to the music and the priorities of that player while they're contributing to the music. Even if you're the kind of player that wants to play, minimal phrasing with other limbs, kind of simple phrasing against the swing pattern on the ride cymbal, I think it's still helpful to practice exercises that are kind of busy and get the other limbs playing various other things against the swing pattern, because that's just going to increase your, it's going to remove rather the dependence that the limbs have on each other, and it's going to just open the floodgates in terms of coordination and being able to play, whatever you want with these three things when you're doing this one thing, And so there's that. So I'm going to talk about some exercises that are kind of a little busy, but it doesn't mean you have to play busy when it comes time to play music, okay? The first exercise is very common. It's called right hand lead, and I used the Ted Reed Syncopation book to practice a lot of this stuff. And again, if you've done a lot of these exercises, there's a couple in here that you may not be aware of, so hang in there with me, okay? Page 37 in the Syncopation book is now page 38. When I practiced it was page 37 because it was a previous publication or a previous release or whatever. Anyway, it's just quarter notes and eighth notes in a swung pattern, and the first 4 bars sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Step 1 is play those 4 bars, with the ride cymbal and the bass drum together, and fill in all the rest of the triplets with the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next exercise I like doing with this is play the Ted Reed figure with the right foot, fill in all the triplets with the left hand, but don't stop the swing pattern. Okay, let's speed that one up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next exercise is one that really broke me up coordination-wise, and it was playing the figures with the left foot, filling in all the remaining triplets with the left hand against the swing pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice the swing pattern doesn't change, and I'm playing the figure with the left foot, and I'm filling in all the triplets with the left hand, okay? Let's try that one a little slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in order to get that happening, your left hand has to be able to play, triplets, in groups of 2, 3, and 4 in a relaxed way. If you can't do a lot of notes with the left hand in succession, then just fill in like hand-to-hand triplets instead of da-da-da-da-da, just like da-da-da-da-da, and try to go back to the ride. If you need help figuring out what the sticking of that stuff is, then write it out. Just write out a bar, like 4 bars of 8th note triplets, and bring down the notes of the Ted Reed phrase, and then you'll see what all of the triplets are remaining. Those are the ones that you'll need to fill in either with your left hand or hand-to-hand, okay? So those are some cool exercises that really helped me. Other things that I like doing with straight ahead playing is like left hand buzz, or what my drum teacher called one motion drop. My drum teacher in South Jersey, Ray Nunzi, who taught me all basic jazz independence. Ray's an amazing drummer, and I was lucky to have a guy that had this stuff happening and was able to show me that stuff before I moved to LA. He called it the one motion drop, which is just like, it's just buzzing with the left hand, and it's actually worth spending time, like just letting the stick drop, let it bounce, let your hand kind of feel like what those bounces sound like when you don't control it at all. Now, in order for the bounce to happen, you're going to want to make sure that you hold the stick in a place to where there's, evenly distributed weight on both sides. Else, if you hold it too much in the front and you let the stick drop, the weight of the front of the stick is just going to crush the stroke before it has a chance to do anything. You kind of get like a seesaw thing happening, then that's going to help this. That's going to help everything, actually, okay? But that's like getting into technique, and that's like a whole other video. So I would work on just, improvising with buzzing with the left hand. I like putting a chick with the left foot in front of the buzz, and just kind of come up with simple musical phrases and just repeat them, against the ride cymbal pattern, 1, 2. Okay, so you can hear putting a chick in front of the buzz, but also putting a bass drum in front of the buzz. Also putting a bass drum underneath the buzz kind of sounds cool. It sounds different than just without the buzz. So it's like, and putting a bass drum in front of that, right? Playing with dynamics with the left hand is something that I find very important when playing jazz drumming. Being in control of like rim shots and soft notes, that can really make the difference between, making something sound musical or not, da-da-da, as opposed to da-da-da, There was one phrase in particular in a video I did on flam rolls that someone asked about, and so I wanted to demonstrate that. And I'm pretty sure the phrase that they were talking about was Some of the double stuff on the left hand is kind of filling in 16th notes in between, some bass drum phrases or some hi-hat phrases instead of triplets. So let me try to isolate that, and once I get it going, I'll slow it down so you can see what's happening, okay? Oh yeah. Something else that I found helpful with straight ahead jazz drumming is just playing eighth note triplets, but breaking them up between the hands and the feet, one note a piece, starting with the foot, okay? Let's do that against the quarter note on the right cymbal and 2 and 4 with the left foot, okay? Once you get that going, there's some pretty cool stuff you can do with that. Obviously moving the left hand around, but also starting to play accents with the left foot and getting the right foot to be quiet or loud, and just experimenting with creating kind of these peaks and valleys dynamically with that. That sounds pretty cool when you replace the bass drum with the left foot. Notice again that the right hand is, at the very least, playing quarter notes, ideally the swing pattern, okay? So 1. Okay, you can play a quick double with the right foot before that stuff. Start putting the left hand part of that in groups of 2, which kind of has this polyrhythmic thing because we're in triplets, which is an odd number of notes. And whenever you take an odd number of notes and you play them in even groups, it starts to sound a little weird. Here's what I'm talking about. 1. Something else you can do is just start to take away the foot, but the left hand kind of stays where it is, playing those kind of quarter note triplets, but they're offset by an eighth note triplet. That's what's going on there. And then you can kind of put one of the feet in wherever you want, which sounds like pretty cool. 1, 2. I like to do that with the left foot kind of at fast tempos. 1, 2. If you have a double pedal and you feel like getting busy, it's pretty easy to do that exact same thing, but play 2 feet instead of 1 foot rather. That sounds like this. So there's some exercises that have really helped me with straight ahead playing. And again, like don't try this stuff unless you have like a good foundation of, you know, basic independence and basic freedom to play phrases with the other limbs against the swing pattern. You know, really make sure that the ride cymbal is driving and is the groove. You know, just as pop music has the kick and the snare kind of defining the groove, in jazz it's all about the ride cymbal defining the groove, or the swing in this case. And just make sure that, you know, the ride cymbal is leading the charge in terms of dynamics, and that it's swinging, and that what you're doing with all the other limbs is not interfering with that cause. And you'll know that when you record yourself and you'll listen back, and maybe someone's taking a solo and you're into that solo, and try to think of it from the soloist point of view, and listen to what they're doing and where they're going with their solo, and then listen to what you're playing underneath of that, and ask yourself if it's hurting or helping. That's really, really important. Try to listen for if the ride cymbal is locked in with the bass player. You know, don't be afraid to ask these questions after gigs. You know, ask the bass player, like, hey man, you know, was the time, did it feel locked in? Did it feel swinging? You know, ask the soloist if you were getting in the way, that kind of thing. You know, this is all helpful stuff to do when you're playing jazz music. There's a lot to it. Don't get discouraged. The most helpful thing you can do is just to not stop, okay? And don't be afraid. Like just keep going, keep practicing, keep playing, and you will get better, because you're not just exercising like coordination, you're exercising your brain in terms of listening to yourself, and when you listen back to it after the fact, that's also, you know, great kind of brain exercise in terms of developing the discretion to pick up on things that you won't pick up on until you hear it. And that may not happen while you're playing. You might have to listen back in order to make that discovery. Okay, and that leads to making your discretion stronger. And then when you listen to other records of other jazz drummers that maybe at first you don't quite get, or you don't understand what's so great about them, you'll start to recognize those things in them, because it's all music. It's all the same thing. You know, it's just, you know, different levels and that kind of thing. All right, so that's it. There's plenty more to talk about with jazz drumming, and we can do that. I'm available for Skype lessons. Reach out to me and let's talk about this stuff one-on-one. Click subscribe over here. Click for more videos. They'll be over here. My name's Steve Holmes. Thank you so much. Let's keep the videos coming, okay?